Oh, make sure we're doing this correctly. All right, we have our live on. And our participants, we will let them in. There's a whole process we got to go through now for this. All right, here we go. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's A Month of Service presentation of maintaining and adding value to your home. My name is Nia Murray. I am the programs coordinator with Neighborhood Recovery Community Development Corporation, and we are one of the partners in the A Month of Service collaboration. Also included is the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods, and joining us today, we have Ms. Cecile Carlson. Also included in the partnership is Lone Star Legal Aid, the Harris Central Appraisal District, Harris County Tax Assessor Collector's Office, the Texas Legal Services Center, Earl Carl Institute, Houston Volunteer Lawyers, and the Houston Bar Association. And together we make up a month of service. And basically what a month of service is, it's the collaboration of all of our organizations coming together each month to offer a variety of different workshops, resources, and information to a lot of those underserved communities that are out there that do not have access to a lot of information, don't know where to go for particular resources and services. So we decided to collaborate and come together and combine a lot of our programs into one collective or into one collaboration. We used to be out in person, and we would go from community to community offering the workshops for an entire month, and then go into another community and then doing the same thing kind of all over again, which is how we came up with a month of service. So we thought it would be better for us to reach a larger audience, create a larger impact by, again, combining all of our programs together and presenting them to the community as a whole. So one of the programs that Neighborhood Recovery offers is the maintaining and adding value to your home. So presenting for us today, we have Mr. Brian Smith with the Smith Group Property Inspections and Ms. Nikki Collins with Keys Real Estate Services. And they're both going to introduce themselves and kind of tell you what exactly is it they do. But we wanted to make sure that we, in being a homeowner, there's a process that you have to go through to actually become a homeowner. Then once you're actually the homeowner, there's maintenance things that you can do to help with prolonging the longevity of your house. And we wanted to also dispel the myth when it comes to different renovations and upgrades and things like that that people are interested in actually doing. What actually really adds value to that property, because a lot of times when you try to go to resell your house and you've done all of these upgrades and it really sometimes actually does nothing to the actual value to your house. So, and being that we are in the midst of hurricane season and we've got all of these disasters and things that are going on, Brian's gonna kind of go over some basic routine maintenance that you could do, some simple things that's not gonna essentially cost you a lot of money in the long run by deferring any kind of maintenance that you have on your house. So, but there's going to be a lot of information covered. This is a lot your opportunity to ask questions, whatever it is that you have of our presenters. If you are joining us on Zoom, please feel free to type your question into the chat box, or if you'd like to wait until the end or raise your hand and unmute yourself, then you can, by all means, have the opportunity to ask the questions directly. Do keep in mind that we are broadcasting live on our social media platform on YouTube as well as on Facebook, and recording the session as well. So we ask that you try to keep your questions to be general in nature if you can. Do not divulge any personal detailed information about, your place of residence and, your children and names and things of that nature. We want to try to protect your privacy as much as we possibly can. However, we do have the experts available here for you today for you to ask questions that you may have. So please feel free to participate. If you are joining us on Facebook, or on YouTube, feel free to type your question into the comment section, and I'll make sure that those questions are read aloud at the end as well, or that they actually get addressed. There were a few questions that were emailed to me when people registered. So I will go over those questions to you for you all as well too. So without further ado, we want to go ahead and start our introductions and get on into our presentation. So we want to thank you again for joining us this afternoon for this collaborative presentation. So let's have Ms. Cecile with the City of Houston. You want to introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Nia. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Cecile Carlson. I am a community outreach coordinator here at the Office of Neighborhood Engagement with the Department of Neighborhoods. I just want to welcome everybody and also big shout out to all of our community partners. This partnership is incredible. It's a great opportunity for us to bring information to the community. Like we said in our conversation yesterday, you can Google stuff, you can get on the internet and try and find an answer, but a lot of times you don't even know if that information is true or if it's applicable to where you live or your situation. So this is a great opportunity for us to hear it from the experts. I know I am learning a lot through this series, so I'm very happy to be a part of it. And again, very thankful for the collaboration on behalf of Mayor Whitmire and our director for the Department of Neighborhoods, Director Sims. We just want to welcome you and also thank the partnership for this opportunity. Lots of great information coming up. I'm looking forward to it. And thank you so much for being here today.
Okay. All right, Ms. Nikki, want to have you introduce yourself, and then Brian will have you introduce, because I know we got you out there on the job, so we want to make sure that that we don't delay your inspection that you're doing in any longer than what we need to. So Ms. Nikki, you want to go ahead and introduce, and then we can have Brian go next.
Hi, my name is Nikki Collins. I'm a second generation real estate professional. My mom is a real estate broker and an appraiser, and I followed in her appraising footsteps. Another sister went down the broker route. I've been appraising for almost 20 years. I started when I was 4. And it really is a thing I enjoy, helping people to know how to build generational wealth through real estate. It's the only vehicle that there's only one of. So I hope that you all enjoy today's offerings.
Indeed. All right. So Brian, why don't we go ahead and have you introduce and tell folks how to stop listening to the street committee out there and tell them what they need to do and what they need to look for when it actually comes to helping with the longevity of your house.
You bet, you bet. So thank you all for having me today. My name is Brian Smith. I am a certified master inspector here in the greater Houston area. Certified master inspector is basically the highest level of inspector that you can achieve. I'm also a licensed professional home inspector by the Texas Real Estate Commission. Originally, I'm an electrical engineer, and I've inspected literally thousands of properties from residential to commercial, you name it. And so I bring a lot of experience to the table, and I'm really looking forward today to sharing with you all a few ideas that are very helpful when it comes to maintaining your home. And Miss Nia has a handout that she's going to share on the screen and also make available to you all with a lot of the talking points that I'll be discussing today. And what I want to do, I want to start off with just a high level conversation. So this sheet that is on your screen, it dives down far into the weeds of maintenance, and it's in the form of a checklist. So each season, you can actually go through and check off the items that need to be done. But I want to have a conversation today versus reading directly from this checklist. And one of the first thoughts that I want to share with you all is that when it comes to a home, there are 5 main big systems in the home that I want to talk about. And those 5 main systems are going to be the roof, number 1. Number 2 is going to be your foundation on your home. Number 3 is the electrical system. Number 4 is the plumbing system. And number 5 is your HVAC system. And HVAC meaning air conditioner, furnace, ductwork, all of that. So those are the big five. Now, as a bonus, number 6 here in the greater Houston area is going to be termites. So I'm going to touch on these 5 because at a high level, our homes are one of the biggest investments that we're going to make in our lifetime. And so what you really want to do is be proactive in maintaining your home for a couple of reasons. Number one, you may decide to sell your home one day. And when it comes time to sell your home, you're in a much better position to get top dollar for your home if you're selling a well-maintained home versus a home that's in disrepair. And then that puts you in a position where the potential buyer is going to want to negotiate and reduce the price so that they won't have to incur all of those expenses in repairing a home that was not maintained properly. So that's one reason. But then the second reason is just say it's your forever home. It's no different than your automobile, whether it's a vehicle, car, truck, whatever. You want to get all the life out of the different systems of your home that you're supposed to. So, for example, let's start with the roof. We talked about big 5, 6. Number 1 is the roof. So, as a homeowner, you may ask, what can I do to do maintenance for my roof? Hey, I don't want to climb up there and whatnot. Well, I'm not suggesting that you climb up on your roof, but a couple of thoughts is number 1, you don't want to have any tree limbs that are touching your roof. So basically the way that it works is you want to keep the roof clean and clear. If you have tree limbs and branches that are coming in contact with your roof, when the wind is blowing, those tree limbs can sway back and forth. They can rub the granules off the shingles, and overall, it can shorten the lifespan of the roof. Here in the Houston area, the average lifespan of the roof is about 20 years. You could get a little more, you could get less, but doing the proper maintenance, trimming tree limbs back from your roof is a good way to start. Now, some of us may have a lawn maintenance type person that helps us maintain our property, and a lot of our lawn people also may do trees or may know someone that does trees, and so that's a good idea. Also, if you have gutters on your home, which I highly recommend, then at least once a month, once every other month, you want to make sure that the gutters are cleaned out. Because if the gutters are full of leaves, pine needles, this kind of thing, you can, number 1, the gutters won't perform as they should, but you can also get water that can back up into the roof line. And so, when it comes to maintenance, again, once a month, once every other month, if you got a lawn guy, handyman, then this is important. And another thing, when it comes to maintenance, a little bit separate than the big 5, I always recommend that you have a list of preferred vendors that you like to work with. What am I talking about? It's good to have a handyman in your phone ready to go in case you need something. It's good to have an air conditioner technician. It's good to have an electrician, a plumber, all of these things. And if you don't have that, I personally have a list of preferred vendors, people that I've worked with that I found to be, fair, do quality work. I'd be happy to share that with you. But, a really good maintenance tip is to have your own list of preferred vendors, contractors, what have you, that, in a certain situation can come out and help you out. So that's what I'll say about the roof. Keep the roof clean and clear. No pine needles, no leaves in the gutters, tree limbs trimmed back. Number 2, the foundation. So normally, when it comes to the foundation, a couple of things as a homeowner that we want to do. Number 1, you really don't want trees too close to your home. If you've got trees that are closer than within 10 feet of your home, you want to consider removing those, because tree roots, those tree roots can travel and they can cause foundation problems. So as a general rule of thumb, we don't want any trees closer than 10 feet to the house. And then also, Here in the greater Houston area, we have a more clay type expansive soil. So why is that important when it comes to foundation? Because we don't want our lawns to get too dry or oversaturated, because it can cause the foundation to start shifting if the ground underneath the foundation is extremely saturated or if it's too dry. If you're fortunate enough to have an irrigation system and you water your yard twice a week, 3 times a week, a lot of times that's good enough to establish a reasonable amount of moisture in your yard. But if you don't, you know, maybe once a month, once every other week, maybe just give a little bit of water around your foundation. And I'm talking particularly in the drought summer type months. So that's basically what you can do with your foundation. Just make sure that, things are irrigated and you don't have trees too close. And then we'll go to electrical, number 3. So with electrical, a couple of things. Electrical, you have normally smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors are considered a part of the electrical system. 8 to 10 years is about the average lifespan. You want to keep your smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors current, but then also at your electrical outlets. If you've got covers on the outlets that are not secured properly and this type of thing, you want to have them secured. And then if you happen to notice that maybe you have some outlets that are not energized properly or whatnot, it's better to have an electrician come take a look. Sometimes it can be just a loose wire or whatever the case may be. But this is a good exercise just to be proactive. So electrical is that, and of course, obviously changing light bulbs, stuff like that. Now, when we start talking plumbing, we'll go to the plumbing section. So here in the plumbing section, one of the main things you can do to help your maintenance efforts with plumbing, let's be careful what we're putting down and flushing down our plumbing system. We don't want to be putting things like grease and a lot of different types of chemicals down our plumbing system. I mean, if it's paper, if it's human waste or whatever the case may be, that's fine. But we don't want to be putting too many foreign type substances and objects into our plumbing system. Also, once every other month or so, you want to glance under your cabinets. Make sure nothing's leaking underneath the cabinets. You don't want to overdo it with storing things underneath your cabinets. A lot of times, you can bump against the piping underneath. And if you've got too much stuff stored under there, you can actually develop a leak under there that you may just sincerely not be aware of because you've overdone it with storage and you don't have visibility. So just at a high level, you want to make sure that your faucets are all running properly, nothing's dripping, leaking as it should not be, and you should be fine there. HVAC, air conditioner. So this is a big topic here in Houston. We have to have our air conditioner, right? One of the main suggestions that I can tell you, number one, the average lifespan for the air conditioner units is about 15 years. And the normal expectation is that we are having our units serviced by a licensed air conditioner technician annually. Now, when I say having it serviced by a licensed air conditioner technician, what I'm talking about, normally they may charge about $200 and they come out, they check the freon level, they clean the evaporator coil, clean the condensation drain, and a lot of them will call it a tune-up. That's a really, really good idea. $200 is a drop in the bucket when you compare to replacing a $10,000 air conditioner unit. So if you don't take anything away from the service on the air conditioning system, it's the annual maintenance. And a lot of the air conditioner companies nowadays, they will set you up on an automated maintenance plan where they will call you once a year and say, and they'll call you, hey, it's time for us to service your unit. What's a good day this week, next week for us to come out and get that done for you? That way you don't have to remember every year to get that done. And it's a really, really good idea. And then finally, when we talk about termites, one of the best pieces of advice I could pass along is keeping your property, the perimeter at the exterior, keeping it clean and clear. What I mean by that is we don't want a lot of excessive heavy vegetation covering the exterior or contacting the exterior of the property. The termites, they form their colonies from the ground up. And whenever we get too heavy with vegetation and stuff like that, it's considered a conducive condition. We don't want scrap pieces of wood laying around, wood rot, that kind of thing. So the idea is clean and clear, and you can really minimize the opportunity for termite activity. Not completely eliminate it, but you can really, really be proactive. And then also, finally, you may consider having pest control in place at your home. A lot of companies will come out once every 90 days. They'll do preventative maintenance as far as the treatment. And then they'll come back in between treatments if needed. That way, you're really being proactive with the pest situation, because if you're not familiar with termites, they can cause a lot of damage structurally to your home. So pest control, whether you're doing it yourself or you have a company coming out, it's a really good idea to be proactive with pest control, because that can cause a lot of heartache. Now, like I said, Miss Nia has the entire checklist available for everyone, and my contact information is on the card, and I believe it's in the chat. And I am more than happy to answer any questions, provide additional information, whatever I can do to help. Consider me a resource.
Unmute myself. Brian, have a quick question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
When it comes to when you were talking about the trees and things like that being too close to the property, what exactly, and I've seen this in all of these different subdivisions, what's the point of the subdivisions planting the trees right next to the foundation if they know that these tree roots are going to then eventually create some foundation and issues with the driveways?
So that's a good question. I think that's a mistake when they do that. And it's a big mistake, because for the health of the home, it is not good. I mean, some people may not believe this, but when you plant a tree, the roots underground, they actually go in search of water. When I say go in search, they will travel looking for water. And your home has a lot of water inside, plumbing pipes and whatnot. And the last thing you want is tree roots interfering with your foundation, causing excessive settlement. But that should not be. They should not be planting trees that close to the home, because that will cause a lot of problems. I mean, whether it's the roof, the foundation, there's nothing really good that can come from planting trees too close to a house.
Gotcha. Ms. Asha, welcome.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And Brian, this is just excellent information. I wish I started watching this 2 years ago when we first moved. Everything you said made sense, and everything you said is a problem for us at this point. I don't understand why HOA has a say-so on how many trees you have, but I don't know exactly who I should contact for some of these issues. And can I contact you to be able to contact the right people, or ask every single one, the termite, the tree, and the pine needles? We just had the, what do you call those, the gutters put in next door. We have a huge pine tree, and now we have pine needles in there. And I just don't know how to go about doing this. It's very overwhelming. And I'm glad I just got to a source here.
You bet, you bet. So one thing that I will say is I'm happy to help.
Oh,
And what
yes.
I may suggest is it may be a good idea for us to connect offline so
Yes.
we can get a little more specific with the issues that are, specific to your situation. And I think that probably would be the best idea. So we can, my contact information is available here, but I would recommend we can, offline here, and I'm happy to help.
That's exactly what I was going to do. Thank you. And you did a great job. Thank you.
Well, thank
Brian, what's your phone number again? Because I've scrolled up.
Go
And
ahead. I heard someone.
I was asking what your phone
Hello?
number is. I put it in the chat, but in case somebody's only listening, so that way they'll be able to get your number.
Okay. You can contact me at area code 281-734-3118. You can also, if you're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, if you type in Brian Smith, Home Inspector, you'll find me there. You can message me on social media. You can go to my website, www.getyourhouseinspected.com. But anyway, I'm very accessible, whether it's text me directly, whether it's, message me on social media, whether it's go to my website. You can get a hold of me if you're wanting to connect.
And I'll send out this checklist again, like Brian mentioned, to everybody that has registered as well. If you get the opportunity, definitely want to follow someone like Brian on social media. He's actually in the houses with the videos showing you different things. This is what this looks like. This is what you look for. This is what needs to be removed or taken out, and so on and so forth. He does a wonderful job with really breaking down what stuff for people like me, that I don't understand what in the world. I just know this little thingy right here and that little thing over there. And, so he does a really good job with breaking a lot of that stuff down. I see someone on an iPhone has also unmuted themselves. Do you have a question or comment for Brian? Hello? Okay, maybe they accidentally unmuted.
Maybe no. I'm gonna say one more thing. If we don't have any more questions, this is kind of goes in the category of maintenance. But if you are a person that is that you're considering purchasing a home sometime in the near future, and you're not a homeowner quite yet, and if you are considering buying a new construction home, let me tell you, don't let anybody tell you you do not need to get that house inspected before you buy it. I'm not going to go too far into that conversation right now, but if you're considering buying a house, new construction is good. I'm not saying it's not, but don't let anybody tell you that, oh, this is new construction. We already had it inspected. Those people that inspect those houses, they work for the builder. They don't work for you. You need to have your own inspector inspecting these houses before you sign on the dotted line and take possession of the house. Because if you don't, then you're in a situation where you're hoping that the builder honors this warranty that they gave you. And we don't want to hope. We want to know the condition of the house before we sign and take possession of it. So, I'm getting a little bit off topic, but just saying.
On your checklist here, Brian, you got under monthly, change AC filters and in the ceiling. What else? One, what's the importance of making sure that gets done? And two, are there other things that you should be doing on a monthly basis, just that's regular routine every single month?
Yes. So the air filter, that may seem like, oh, well, you know what, that's not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal because number one, we're talking about the quality of the air that you're breathing. We want to be breathing clean, fresh air, but then also when those air filters get extremely clogged and neglected, you can really choke down the unit and it has to work harder. It's not going to be as efficient. Your light bill is going to go up and you're going to shorten the lifespan of that unit. So something as simple as changing air filters can save you thousands of dollars in the long run. And then what else can we do? Well, some other things that we can do is now on a monthly basis, you want to, so I'm going to default to having that unit service annually. So if you're doing, at a minimum, if you're doing that and you're changing your air filters, you are 90% ahead of a lot of people out here. I mean, if you're having your unit service and you're changing your air filters, you are really in a good position. So, I don't want to overwhelm you guys with, getting in the attic, pouring bleach in the condensation drain and all that. You can do all that, and that's good. But at a minimum, if you're having an AC technician service your unit annually and you're changing your air filters, that's a really, really, really good start.
In the particularly like we had last year when it's really, really hot and really, really dry, where there is no rain. There hasn't been any rain. I know that there was a lot of settling, a lot of foundation shifting and things like that. And you've already gone over about watering the foundation. In those properties where you now have already had the shifting, where the doors are sticking and you see like the little cracks in the caulking around the windows and things like that. What are some things that people can do to kind of they just can't go and fix the shift in the settling. I mean, it's been done. But once it's been done, what other little things can be done like that to kind of help with any additional settling or some kind of issues with like the door sticking and the window caulking?
So that's a great question. I'm gonna be brief with my answer, but when it comes to caulking and stuff like that, that's an annual maintenance type deal. Every
Okay.
house has settlement, and so caulking and sealant is a part of everybody's annual responsibility. Now, if you're a homeowner and you have concerns that the settlement is excessive, well, what I'm gonna recommend. So here's what I'm gonna recommend. Don't call a foundation repair company to your house. I honestly, in my experience, I don't trust a lot of foundation repair companies because they come out and they want to sell you some foundation repair. And I see a lot of unnecessary foundation repair that gets sold to people. Now, I'm not on here to, try to get you to call me, but I would say call me because I'm unbiased and I'm not there to sell you foundation repair. And I see a lot of foundations. I can look at it and tell you if this is truly foundation or not. And then also, if you have some foundation settlement, and if you have it within your budget to install some gutters around the roof line of your house, I really like that because in a rainy season, you can direct water away from the house. We don't want standing pooling water close to the house. If you're fortunate enough to maybe have an irrigation system, check it. Make sure you're running it a couple of times. But then also, every crack in the wall doesn't automatically mean we got a big foundation problem.
Mm-hmm.
A house will settle, and also a house needs to be repainted on the interior every few years. So if you've been in the house 5 years, more than that, and you're seeing some cracks on the wall, some of that can be just normal settlement. So that doesn't automatically mean we got a foundation problem here. Just understand that part of the maintenance is a house needs to be repainted every so many years also. And so, just be careful, calling foundation repair companies because I don't want to see anybody get taken advantage of.
The thing about the painting, I'm glad you brought that up because I was literally just looking at my walls and I'm like, man, I need to paint again already, but it has been more than 5 years. So if you need to paint every 5 years on the interior, that's not too excessive, or it's not, it's not like, oh, I got bad paint. Oh, I forget this thing. Every time you raise your hand, it automatically acknowledges that it's a problem, that it was a bad paint job that somebody did because it's been 5 years. So that's the average for repainting on the interior.
5 years, it doesn't automatically mean, hey, we gotta repaint the whole house in 5 years. But in 5 years, you will have some settlement, and you'll see some settlement type, things happening, and that's normal. And I'm just mentioning that because every settlement, settlement of texture of paint does not equal foundation repair. And some people, I feel like, they get spooked out and I've just seen people getting taken advantage of, and to me that's not cool.
I meant even just in painting in general. That's not to say you got a bad paint job or you got really cheap paint or really bad paint just because now it's just time to repaint. It's not unheard of for you to paint every 5, 6 years or whatever because it's just good to do.
Exactly, exactly. And if you're like my wife, you want to paint every other year. So, it's
Get tired of looking at the
hey,
same walls all the time. You got to
hey,
try,
listen,
you know,
don't anybody on here tell my wife I said that, okay? I like her painting every other year.
It's better than changing the whole interior and redesigning everything. If you change the paint, that makes it look like you've done some redecorating, well,
That's right.
I want to go back to real quick to the AC and changing the filters. I've heard some people talk about the 30-day filters. I've seen the 90-day filters. What's a good filter to use and how long, regardless of what it says on the package, how often are you supposed to change your filters?
So that's a great question. So normally, whenever you're talking about a lot of different things in the house with the filters, let's say there's the lower end filter, medium, high end. And I prefer the kind of medium. I don't want the cheapest filter. I don't need the most expensive one, but if you get the one kind of in the middle, that's good. Now, how often you're supposed to change it? Honestly, that's going to depend on your lifestyle. If you have pets in the home, somebody smoking in the house, whatever, you may have to change the filter every 2 weeks, but if you're, there's nobody smoking, there's no pets, honestly, you may be able to change the filter every other month, but you should be looking at it once a month. I mean, because in the grand scheme of things, filters are not very expensive. And I would rather change it more frequently than less frequently. Because what happens is some people, they'll put a filter up there and they'll leave it for a year, 2 years, forgot about it. And so, I think that every other month, some people say every 90 days, at least every other month, we should be getting that filter changed because they're not that expensive and they can really, really help you health-wise, the health of the unit, all of the above. So that's something that's very inexpensive, easy to do, that can really help your unit because those ACs are expensive, thousands of dollars to replace.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I saw that there were something I had gotten that they were changing the requirements of the units that are outside, needing to match the units that are on the inside, and that they're no longer making parts or something like that for the older units that they have. So people basically have to just about upgrade their units.
Yeah, so if you have an air conditioner unit that's, more than 15 years old, you could have a unit that has the old style of Freon in it. And they stopped making that because it's harmful to the environment, ozone layers, stuff like that. And so if you do have one of those older units and you're hanging on to it, it's really expensive to replace Freon. You can't hardly find it, and it's really expensive to put that older Freon. So they're phasing that out.
Yep. So keep that in mind. All right. Are there any other questions? You answered the other questions that I had that were emailed that was specifically for you. So I don't see anything else on my list here. Yeah, I don't see anything else on my list here. Are there any questions or any other participant?
Y'all have my contact information. If there's anything I can do to help, don't hesitate to reach out to me.
All right. Thank you very much, Brian. We'll go ahead and let you get back to work. Appreciate you.
All right.
All
Bye.
right. Have a good one. All right. So now we've got Miss Nikki Collins, who's going to present on appraisal value, or what actually adds value to your home and what that actually looks like. So go ahead, Miss Nikki. And you're on mute too.
Okay, let me share the right screen and still be able to see me. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
So I'm gonna try to be brief. I'm never brief. Y'all work with me. about what it's worth, what your property is worth, and what the changes that you do, how they impact your value. So I
Just
said
be
earlier,
thorough. You don't have to be brief. Be thorough. That's
you know, I'm better at thorough than brief. I'm a second generation real estate professional. I'm a certified general real estate appraiser here in the state of Texas. My undergraduate background was in information technologies, and the bubble burst. And I swore I would never do what my mother did for a living. And here I am. So I have a master's degree in land economics and real estate from Texas A&M. And I've been a real estate professional for 19 years. So when we're talking about any type of investment, and your home is an investment, even if you never move, you'll say, we've been in this house for X number of generations, and we're going to be in this home for X number of generations to come. It is still an investment. So what is the return that you're going to make on this investment? So the phrase that's used in the financial markets is ROI. And so it is the return on your investment. Then we're going to talk about how you determine cost versus value. We're going to talk about pecuniary value and personal value. So those are the four pieces that I think are really important to think about as you are making changes to your property. So when we look first at the return on investment measures profit that you could make or that you have made on an investment. So how do we determine that return? We look at cost versus value. A lot of times we think that because we paid an amount that will be what it's worth. And we like to add up the components, right? So when you have I was going to say a car, but I don't know the pieces of a car. Okay. Let's talk about a cake. So when you have a cake, you go and I don't know if you all have bought a custom cake recently. Listen, you have to, it's an investment like your house sometimes with some of these cakes. And you'll say a cake is nothing but flour, sugar, eggs, butter, chocolate if you're like me. I don't know how we got from $40 worth of ingredients to $1,500 worth of cake. Well, that's because cost and value are seldom equal. What it will cost you to do something to your property and how that will impact your value are very seldom dollar for dollar. So, so you can't, let's use the example of like a widget. So I made this item for $1. That's what it cost me to make it. I go and I sell that on the open, free, fair market, right? That's always important to say because all the markets are not open, free, and fair, but let's just say for the sake of this argument that this one is. So on the open, fair, free market, this thing that I made for $1, people are buying similar items for $10. And that's typically how prices are set, right? What will people buy a similar item for? And so they're buying similar items like this thing for $10. So I have now made it's a ridiculous return on investment because I've made like a 90% return on investment, not 90, 900, because it was $1. For every dollar you make, that's a 100% turn on investment. You made back what you spent and then some, right? So you didn't make that initial dollar, but you did make the $9. So 900% return on investment. Now, wouldn't it be wonderful if when we spent $1, we got, $9 for every dollar we spent? I think that my husband would be much better, much happier with my budgeting, than he is right now. Because right now I make $1 and I might spend $2. So cost minus versus value. Now, I've been saying for almost since we started that money has been getting more expensive, and it has. Because there was so much money in the market, they had to do some market corrections, When they are trying to correct the economy, one of the ways that they do it is they increase the interest rate, right? And if the federal government increases their interest rate, then that's fed all the way through the economy until you get down to average Joe and Joanne, who are finding that everything is more expensive because it's costing the banks more to borrow. So that means that it's going to cost companies more to borrow. So that means that it's going to cost suppliers more to borrow, and it rolls down. It's going to cost us more to buy because everyone else's costs went up. And so what was happening was we had the rising cost of money, labor, and materials. Now, today, because unemployment is doing what it's doing, and we also have to attempt to correct that. And we're having issues where people can, because of interest rates and the rising cost of homes, people can't afford to purchase homes right now. The Fed dropped the rate today. So don't get caught up in the hype though, because they dropped the rate, but rates are still high. So it's not like we've returned to where we were. It's very doubtful we're going to return to where we were in 2021, because that was the wild, wild west. It was great for appraisers. We had a lot of work. But now, what we're hoping is to kind of get the market to a point of stability. We've been in a very volatile markets. All of the financial markets have been very volatile for the last 2 or 3 years, and we're hoping to calm it down. So cost versus value, the rising cost of money, labor, and materials. Now let's talk about how do we identify when it's the best time to do a thing. Sellers markets, buyers markets. When the rates were super low, right? Rates were low. We had come out of a little bit of a purchasing slump. So prices were low. And that began the start of a seller's market. This was at about the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And it was a seller's market because the market was trying to entice people to come in, right? So rates were low. People had money. People were scared to spend money because of the pandemic. It was just not a good time. People didn't feel safe buying. They didn't know whether they were going to have to work from home or what job security was going to look like. Things were just all over the place. So in order to entice buyers to come into the market, everything was low. Prices were low. Interest rates were low. Everything was low. Well, what then happened was everybody qualified for everything. So now you have where they started out reducing things because the price pool was here. I'm looking for my camera. Price pool was here. As they reduced the thing, the price pool did this. So where the sellers only had a couple of people who were qualified to buy properties, now they have oodles and oodles of people who are qualified to buy property. And as a result, we all know what happened. Housing prices went through the roof. You walk around, you look at like, this is what $300,000 buys me now. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's all it's going to buy you now. The $1 million house, the house that you used to get for $1 million is now, $2 million. And the house that you could get for 6 something a few years back is now $1 million. And so in that seller's market, you didn't have to have anything repaired. You didn't have to ask. Listen, there was some ugly stuff. And people were buying it because they were scared that if they didn't buy it, they wouldn't have anything to buy. And so sellers were having a great time in that market because it didn't require that they did any upgrading. It didn't require that they have any of their maintenance done because buyers were willing to take on that cost burden themselves. So now let's fast forward to where we are now in 2024. We talked about the rates going up. The prices have all gone up. Well, there's an inverse relationship here, which means that when one thing goes up, the other thing goes down. So what went down? The number of buyers that are in the market. And because there are fewer buyers, you have some people who are just like, I refuse to pay $600,000 for a house that 2 years ago was $400,000. I refuse to do it. the interest rate is ridiculously high. So even though I can afford to buy the house, the interest rate now pushes me out where I can't, and I'm unwilling to spend that kind of make that kind of payment every month. And so the buyer's market has considerably gotten smaller. I mean, the buyers in the market have gotten smaller. And we now find ourselves in a buyer's market. If they're, I listened to a good friend of mine who's a broker, and she got a call, and the house is pristine. The house that she's listing is pristine. But she got a call from an agent saying, the buyer just feels like the house is too dark, right? Because it was like, sand colored granite and that kind of thing. All the things have been done: flooring, countertops, cabinetry, all the things have been done, but they just want it lighter. And so we're going to pass. And because now they're going to be able to go and either find the lighter thing, or some seller will be so motivated to sell that they will reduce the price. They will give them a renovation allowance. Now is when the buyer is buyer's king right now. So how do we identify whether we're in a seller's market versus a buyer's market? If money is expensive, and by money being expensive, we mean that interest rates are high and prices are high, you're going to be in a buyer's market. If money is cheap, which means interest rates are low, prices are lower in the beginning, they're going to start off low, then you know that we're in a seller's market. If money is inexpensive and prices are through the roof, that means that sellers are having a great time. And if it goes too long, you're going to see that market correction, and it's going to shift. So what is the impact on your return? When you're in a seller's market, you can do very little and get lots of return as a seller. When you're in a buyer's market as a seller, you can do a whole lot and still get very little return. As a buyer in a seller's market, you can spend a lot and you may not get as much as you were hoping for. In a buyer's market, you can spend less and you can expect to get much more. And so that's kind of how that impacts our return. So when we talk about time is of the essence, that's a contracting phrase, and I like it because it sounds serious. But what it means is that it says in this contract, whatever timelines are detailed in there are timelines that you must stick to and adhere to legally. Now, two of the phrases that I talked about were personal value and pecuniary value. And here's where we're going to talk about those two things. Personal pecuniary value, when we talked about the widget, that was simple. It cost me $1. I sold it for $10. I made $9. Pecuniary value is dollars and cents. You can figure that out all day long. Personal value is different. Personal value talks about the amount of feel I can assign to this thing, right? I can't put I have my christening dress from when I was a baby. Now, that would be okay if my baby wasn't 4. See, my baby's 4. Nobody's gonna wear this christening dress. I don't know if they're gonna be christening people by the time my children have children of their own. However, that dress is important to me. Now, my mother probably got that dress for, considering how old I am, she probably paid $20 at JCPenney, right? But to me, it is a priceless artifact from my childhood that I would like to pass on to my children who may not want it, but I'm gonna pass it on anyhow. So that's pecuniary, personal value. I can't put a number on it, but it's really meaningful to me. And it's easier sometimes for us to see that we have assigned that to objects, cars, clothing, books, photographs, than it is to see that we have assigned this to residential or real estate property. And let me show you how we know when we've gotten our wires crossed in terms of value. So when we're talking about timing, how long will you own the property? If I am getting ready to put my house on the market in the next 6 months, but I really love a bubblegum pink bathroom, you know, because I want it. Yeah, I'm also a homeschool mother. Melissa, thank you. That way. Thank you. Okay. So now I got to pull my mind back. Okay. But I like bubblegum pink. So I want a 50s feel bubblegum pink bathroom. And because I know that I can't be the only one who really enjoys that era. And so I'm going to go and put this bathroom in because I know that this is going to have a lot of value when I'm getting ready to sell the home, but it won't, right? Because my own personal preference does not define a market. And so we want to make sure when we're making those changes, edits, and additions that we are mindful of how long you're going to own your property. So you say, I know that I'm not going to go anywhere in the next 10 years, right? And I also know that whenever I get ready to sell this house, I'm not doing a thing. I might reduce the price, but if they don't want my pink bathroom, then they're going to have to tear it out and replace it with something else. And that is fine. As long as you are like, I'm going to enjoy my bubblegum pink bathroom for the next 10 years. And who knows, in 10 years, maybe it will come back in style. Because you know what else, whatever's old becomes new again. And if it doesn't, then, you know, let them deal with it. But I'm not going to worry about it because I had an opportunity to enjoy the fruits of my labor. Skip down a little bit. So the other thing is this your homestead property or is this an investment property? Is this the home that I live in? I live in the home that my parents bought when I was 6, right? I am now the second generation in this home. And so the home very much reflects the owners of the home. The paint job in this space that I'm living in, that I'm sitting in right now, it's not anything wrong with the paint job. It's just that the color palette is very much my mother's color palette choice. I would not have made these choices because I think like a real estate professional, right? So I would not have made these choices because they are intensely personal. The combination of colors that she put together, has it grown on me? Yes. But because, you know, if you live in something, it's going to grow on you, maybe. But if I were coming in here to purchase this, my mind would immediately be like, okay, I'll be at Sherwin-Williams because I'm not going to keep these colors. And so you want to be careful about what you do in a homestead property versus an investment property. So maybe this isn't the home you live in. Maybe it's a property you own that you rent out. And you want to be careful about not doing too much, not doing too little because of your own personal preference, but keeping in mind the market for your property. So we talked a little bit about how to determine whether you will make changes. Now let's talk about the kind of changes you will make. Brian, I like it when the guys go ahead of me because they make it really easy to explain the deferred maintenance versus capital improvements. A lot of what people do, and I'll get a list. When I go in and do an appraisal, people will give me like a booklet and they'll tell me all of the things they've done. And what they want me to do is be like, oh, let me increase your value by $40,000, you know, because you did this. Or, you know, 40%, 20%. And a lot of times what's on that list are things that really are considered deferred maintenance. Things that just get your house back to where it was when you started before you had the normal wear and tear of life and living in a property. So it's things like deferred maintenance things like painting, things like changing the carpet, things like changing the air conditioning unit, which is expensive, but it's still only deferred maintenance. Things like putting on a new roof. Was it time for the roof to be replaced? Yes. So what's going to happen now is we're not going to ding your value for needing a new roof. We're not going to ding your value because you needed, you know, if your HVAC was on its way out. We're not going to ding your value for not having done deferred maintenance. Capital improvements, on the other hand, are the things that don't return necessarily your house to current status, to its original status. It's those things that bring it into what's happening currently in the market. Recently, we did an appraisal. So let me tell you how you tell the difference. Recently, we did an appraisal on a property where when we walked in, the thing was gorgeous, right? And so they had painted, they had changed out countertops, they had changed plumbing. And so when I was doing the appraisal, I was looking at what the contracted price was, and then I was looking at what the sales were in the market. And I was like, wait, I might be missing something because it wasn't something that had been listed. I don't know how the transaction happened, but it hadn't been listed. So I called the agent because I needed to understand how they got to this contract price. And so she began to tell me how the house had originally had galvanized plumbing. And they didn't just patch leaking galvanized, they put in PEX. The house had older electrical. They didn't just replace the box, they went through the house and they replaced all the electrical. They went through and didn't just replace the outside unit for the HVAC, they replaced all the ductwork. And so they did everything that would essentially, they replaced sheetrock, they did everything but make the house have a new foundation. And they left the exterior. And so capital improvements talks about those things that modernize, that make it current, that bring it into what a buyer would expect to see on currently sold houses in the market. And so that's the way you tell the difference. If it's those things that you just should do because it's something you do monthly, annually, every 5 years, every 10 years, then those typically are just deferred maintenance things that you do just to keep your house functioning as it should. So how do we want to think? How do we want to approach this? There are two ways that I'm going to suggest that you approach this. The first way is to think like a buyer. So if you were buying a home, and also if it's an investment property, if you were going to be a renter, if you were going to rent the home, what would you be looking for? And so I play a little game called Would You Rather. And what I have there are two different types of stone. I'm pointing at my screen, not that y'all can see it, but you have two types of stone. One is a Carrara marble. Carrara marble is one of the fancy danciest stones out there. Right? And then you have a piece of granite. Now, if you think with personal value, you'll say, surely we would want to make sure that we have the marble so that it's really fancy. Or sometimes, you'll say, I'm not getting ready to spend marble money. They're going to get this granite and be happy. And depending on what market you are doing this in, will determine whether you would spend the money to put in the Carrara marble or whether it's sufficient to put in the granite. The reason I use these two particular pictures is because the picture that looks like it's marble is actually granite. And this piece that looks like granite is actually marble. But because of where they were cut out of the slabs of stone, they don't give the same feeling that you're used to a particular type of stone evoking. And so that's when we're saying, 9 times out of 10, the average person, you can put in quartz, you can put in, corian, and a lot of times people are just like, we wanted a solid surface countertop. And so if it's not a market that really requires those luxury finishes, luxury materials, then do the thing that makes sense, but don't go, way out of your way, because a buyer is just happy that it's not Formica, that it's not linoleum. They're just pleased that it's, a simple slab of stone. They're not going to go as deep in many markets, in many segments of a market as you would think. The other way that I encourage you to think is to think like as an appraiser. When we are appraising, we do exactly what I talked about with the widget. what are similarly aged, size, and conditioned homes selling for in the market. We use sales comparables in appraising, and the perfect sales comparable is this exact floor plan on this exact amount of land next door that sold yesterday, right? That's the perfect comp, because logic and reason would say if that one sold for this on yesterday and they're exactly the same, except one is next door, then surely this one should sell for the same if it sells, in a reasonably close amount of time to when that one sold. That is just about appraisal process in a nutshell. It's a little, few more little bits and pieces, but that's the overarching thing. So we look at what's happening in the homes around you. In our neighborhood right now, I told you we moved here when I was 6, and that was like, just a little bit ago. But when we moved in, there were sheet vinyl floors and linoleum countertops. And I mean fancy sheet vinyl now. Don't get it. Fancy sheet vinyl, fancy linoleum Formica. And but that's what was happening then. The dark wood paneling, the mirrors behind the wet bar, all that good, real good early 80s, late 70s, early 80s design. And so over the years, over the past however many years, we've had several iterations of how we have changed the house in order to keep up with what's happening in the market, because we're in it. We know how things are changing. So I was downstairs. We're on our fourth flooring change. So there have been 5 types of floors. I'm in a meeting. We're on our 4th flooring change. So we went from white porcelain tile to this lovely tile that had flowers that met up at the corner. That one was real fancy. Then we did these skinny wood-like tiles, and now we're on that big 4-foot tile that looks like wood. And then on the 2nd floor, to keep it not as heavy, we have the vinyl plank. And we used a stiff vinyl plank, and it's only like a year old, but we're getting ready to change it out. Why? Because that's not what's happening in the market, and we like to keep up with what's happening in the market. So the question we want you to consider is quality or quantity, which was the thing we talked about in the choice of stone. When you're choosing, do you choose quality or quantity? Is it about how much I spent, or is it about whether this is a really good quality piece that makes sense for the market? Nobody cares how much you spent as long as what you bought was really good quality and it's in keeping with what's happening in the market. Am I over improving or not doing enough? So what does over improving look like? Because sometimes we shoot past the mark. Over improving in my home in this neighborhood would be if I appraised this house one time, and they had a soaking tub that was made from jade. Okay. They had to have a crane. They couldn't close that side of the house. A crane had to deliver the bathtub into the house, and seat it where it was going, because it was too heavy for people to move. Now, it was a gorgeous piece of plumbing fixture. If I put a jade bathtub in this house, it would 100% be for personal value, because I would never get that money back. I would have over improved. Nobody has even seen a jade bathtub in my neighborhood but me. See what I'm saying? So we try to do those things that make sense for the market that we are in. Now, in that neighborhood where that man had that jade bathtub, his neighbors would come in and say, "Oh, you have jade? Because mine is made of," pick some other stone that nobody would have a bathtub made out of. And that's what they would say. And so are we over improving or not doing enough? Now, I have a really nice Kohler soaking tub, okay? It's fancy. But now if I went in that neighborhood where they had that jade bathtub and I put in that Kohler, that people would come and say, now, what is happening? This does not even match what we do in this part of town. So we want to make sure that we're not over improving for the market, and also that we're not doing enough for the market. Then we want to look at how's the market moving. Because if things are slow and things are not changing a whole lot, you know, if values are falling, they're not really increasing, you may not want to make a lot of expensive changes unless you know that I'm making these changes to have personal value. It's really important to know, am I making money or I'm just making me happy? Because if I'm making me happy and I have enough time to enjoy it, then I might do some things that others would consider frivolous, but it's not their money and it's not their happiness, so I don't care. But if we are concerned with how this money is being spent and whether we're going to get a good return on our investment, then we do want to consider how the market is moving, whether things are rising or falling, so that we don't misspend money. So now that we talked about all the things that we could do, let's talk about some things that are real easy to do. If you're preparing to sell, if you're preparing to show for renting, what are some low-cost changes that you can do to increase appeal to your property? I always say the first thing is clean up. Not only does a clean property show the property to its greatest advantage, people feel differently in clean spaces. I know this because I've been needing to clean my bedroom for 2 weeks, and I feel better in here than in my bedroom because this area is clean. See what I'm saying? So you want to evoke the feelings that you get from being clean. And also, there is something that happens in the mind of someone when you see something that's just unkempt, that makes you wonder, if they didn't do this easy thing, what also did they not do? And so it starts that mental calculator, and that's the thing that you don't want to start happening. Another easy thing to do is to refresh painting. It doesn't always call for a full painting overhaul. Sometimes it does, but it may call for this wall that has some scuff marks on it. Let's tidy that up so that you don't see those little imperfections and it's not drawing the eye. Because imperfections draw your eye a lot faster than like really grand, beautiful things, right? It's like there'll be a gorgeous chandelier and then there'll be a hole in the wall and you'll be like, oh, that chandelier is nice, but oh my God, what happened with that wall? And so you want to make sure that those things that you replace and repair damaged or stained items. If it's that there's some stained carpet, maybe you won't have to change the flooring in the whole house. Maybe you just have to change the flooring in that room. You know, so you just want to change out those things that are fairly simple, fairly easy to do, but don't necessarily require you to make a big overhauling change. So now, if you're trying to make a big needle move, let's talk about how you move the needle in terms of value. It is very cliche that kitchens and bathrooms sell houses, I will admit. However, from an appraisal standpoint, when we are doing appraising for the purpose of lending, right, for financial purposes, and on that form in the condition section, when it's talking to us about a property being renovated or updated, it asks 2 questions. When was the last time the kitchen was done? When was the last time bathrooms were redone? They don't care that you paint it. They don't care that you put in all new carpet. They don't care that none of that factors into the overarching condition question on those forms. And so they want to know, what did you do? Was it just an update or was it a renovation? And then they want to know, how recently was it done? And so those, if you have the money and you want to make a big impact, then that's typically where the impact is made. Now, you still want to not do too much for the area so that you don't spend as much as you don't want to spend too much, but still get the impact that you desire. So we live in Texas, and a question that we're often asked as appraisers, typically we're asked it when we are doing an appraisal, right? People are very proud of their pools in Houston. I have one. I like it. It's great. It is a money pit. Okay. So If your goal is to increase your value, if that is the only reason you are putting in a pool, don't do it. Now, if you are like our family was, when we moved into the house, there were two of us kids. There ended up being three kids. We were the house where everybody came. We had all the parties, all the jazz. Pool was wonderful. I now have far too many kids to be as young as I am. And so they now enjoy the pool. They swim daily during the summertime. And so for us, there is 100% all of the personal value that the increased insurance rate is, that the monthly maintenance on the pool is, it's worth it for us. But if you are not going to get to enjoy that pool, and if you are doing it as a vehicle to increase wealth, it is not going to do that. So I'm just telling you as an appraiser, I've seen people put in $100,000 pools and we are like, that is gorgeous. And so what we're going to do is we're going to give you $25,000 worth of value on that pool. And they will hand me paperwork to tell me what it costs. And we are now back into a cost versus value kind of situation. Just because that's what it costs you to put it in doesn't mean that that's what it's worth. So another way to move the needle, and this can move the needle in either direction, is floor and decor. That's what I call it. So these personal paint choices, personal stone choices. I wanted, somebody will say, well, I wanted this black granite with gold shot through, and that's fine, but you may end up moving the needle in the direction you didn't want it to move because your own personal choices were being made as opposed to choices that you should have been making for the market. So now that we kind of have an idea of what we want to do, what it's going to give us in return roughly, how do we move forward once we've decided that we are ready to make some changes? The first thing you do is you make a plan, because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you really want to, and you don't want the project to get away from you, which is easy to do. It's that thing of, I painted the walls and now my floors look bad. So now I've changed out the floors. Now my furniture doesn't go. So I'll buy new furniture. Well, now the TV looks small. So you don't want to run into what is called in project management scope creep, right? So you want to try to develop what it is that you're actually desiring to do. Make your plan. Be honest, be specific, and whatever you do not overextend. My advice to people is always to not spend more than you can afford to lose, because maybe the market will hold and you will see the return you desire, and maybe it won't and you will not. We bought a house when my husband was in the military. We bought a house in 2008 because we were bright, okay, in Georgia, and he was still in the military, and he had to PCS less than 2 years after we bought that house. But that was right when the bubble really burst in Georgia during that time. And so we ended up having to sell that house for half of what we bought it for, even though we had done all of those things, because we had not been expecting a PCS order. We thought that we had at least another 3 or 4 years at that duty station. And Uncle Sam said, absolutely not. And so, you just want to be sure that everything you're doing, you're either going to really get a chance to enjoy it, or if you lose that money, you'll survive. And so we survived. So if you have any additional questions, if there's anything that I can help you with, you can reach me at 281-414-5709. And my email address is N like Nikki or Nancy, because people sometimes hear Nikki as Mickey. N like Nancy, V like Victoria Collins at KEYSRES.com. I hope this was helpful.
I am in the process of typing your information in the chat here.
I am trying to figure out how to, oh, there we go.
Oh, wait, no, wait, I needed
Put
the
it
phone
back.
number. I was typing the
Oh,
number and
okay.
stuff in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, 281-414. Or I guess I could have asked you. Would have worked the same, huh?
I forget I can still see all the controls even when it's sharing.
Keys, RES.com. Okay. I like to make sure that I put it in the chat for those folks when they go back to review it, they could still see it in the chat as well as hear you say it and then see it on the screen. So just
Yeah.
we got all the everything kind of covered here. Okay, 281-414-5709 NB Collins at keysres.com. Okay, got
Yeah.
it. All right. I don't see any questions far back in the chat here for you. Are there any questions of any of the participants? If you guys would like to unmute yourself to ask your questions directly of Miss Nikki while we have her on the line here. I'm trying to go back. I'm looking at the Facebook and the YouTube as well. Making sure I don't have anything else. Nope, I don't see anything else. With the recent storm that we've had and repairs that need to be done or that people need to actually make, does that change when there's damages from storms that need to be done, if there's a new roof and things like that, does that change the overall appraised value of a home when you make those kind of repairs, those minor little things, as opposed to cosmetic kind of things? Like if say for instance I shingles or a tree kind of came in and knocked in my window or something like that, and then I had to go and make that repair to get it. Does that change the value of your home in any kind of form?
Okay, so it can, but it might not.
Okay.
If you don't get it done, for sure it's going to change your value. Okay, that's always the first thing I tell people. Can I just hold off? Do not hold off. At least on those things where that can continue to destroy the property, you may not be able to get everything done right now. Get the roof put on, get the window put in. Those things that will continue to dry your house, you want to make sure those things are done. So here's where you get interesting. If you do just what had been there before, then you could expect your value to remain the same. A lot of people take the opportunity for, when something happens, to kind of do a little more because if the wall is open, then you might as well do a little something while the walls are open where you don't have to tear the wall out yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You may upgrade your roof. Before you had a 10-year roof. Now you may put on a 25 or 30-year roof. So you have opportunities to do a little something more during that time, and those things will improve the condition and kind of change what you had from what you had before. So are you returning it? Are you restoring it back to exactly what you had before, or are you kind of upgrading a few things since you're already in there anyway?
When people are dealing with contractors, when they're making repairs and things of that nature, and you've got contractors kind of upgrading them or telling them, oh, well, if you're in here, you may as well do this. How do they know, or how would they know if it actually adds some additional value, as opposed to it just being you're getting a better quality of whatever it is that you're changing it to from what you had before?
So unless your contractor is also an appraiser, never believe them.
Yeah.
When they
That's
tell
kind of what
you
I was
what
getting
your
at right there.
never believe them. Now we do all the things. We have the broker's license, we do the appraising, we do contracting, right? But even when we are contracting, I keep my contractor's hat on. I don't put my appraiser hat on. Because if I put that appraiser hat on and I tell you, if you do this, your value will be this, that is a legally binding appraisal.
Mm.
And so no one is qualified. I mean, it takes more than just looking at it to tell you how this will impact your value. But there are some things that that logic will say should be able, but now everybody doesn't have the same information to have the same strength of logic, right? So you always want to keep that in mind. Well, it would make sense that this would, yeah, but you don't have all the information that you need to make it make as much sense as it should.
Right.
So you want to be very careful that one, that what we tell people who are contracting, even if they don't choose to work with us, we tell them, number one, always remember that no contractor is your friend. Unless the contractor is your friend, the contractor is not your friend. And so, you want to be very mindful of not talking to just one person, of having a few folks that you're checking with. You want to be sure that you have seen samples of things that they have done before. And you want to have some idea of what it is that you want to do and not solely rely upon what the contractor is telling you.
Got it. Makes sense. Right. I thought I had somebody that popped up, but it was another comment, so that's not yours.
That's because
Okay.
I did such a good job.
You did. I told you thorough
I'm
over
telling you. I answer the questions before they're asked.
thorough over fast. So thank you very much, Miss Nikki. We really appreciate you coming out this afternoon in the middle of your homeschool day to
they were active today. And so we're blurred.
Hey, well, you know what? Whatever we got to do to get the information out to the people. So tell the children, thank you very much for giving you this little bit of free time to actually be able to do that. I always want to acknowledge our presenters. Do know that when we have these presenters on, they are professionals in their field. They are volunteering their time to actually provide this information to the community. So we want to give the utmost thanks and appreciation to all of our presenters, whether it's this presentation or any of the others, because they do take time out of their schedule. They do take away from their billable hour days to volunteer and give this information out to the community. So we definitely want to acknowledge that and thank you and thank Brian for providing this information to the community today. So if there aren't any other questions or anything else that we have, we certainly want to invite you all to come back to other month of service presentations. The third Wednesday of the month is the adding and maintaining value from your home. We try to switch up all of our inspectors because sometimes they give a little bit of a different perspective or go over something else in a little bit more detail, depending on the season, depending on what, if a disaster has happened or whatever. So if you all would like to come back next month to get more information, please feel free to do that. You will have the opportunity, like I mentioned earlier, to go back and view the presentation. I will be sending out a link of this recording as well as the link to the YouTube pages for you to go and watch other presentations that we have had as well. So I will include the schedule for the remainder of the month so you all will see what else we've got coming up. As we were talking about the property and appraised value, we have our property tax workshop that's coming up next Wednesday, as well as our foreclosure prevention workshop. So if you are a homeowner and you find yourselves having questions about the appraised value as it relates to your property taxes, you do want to come to that presentation next week. I do know that they do cover information relative to disasters that we've had and how you can get those disaster exemptions if you've had some damage done to your house, because you want that appraised tax value to be less than what's the actual market value is, because that determines what your property tax bill is going to be for that year. So you guys want to tune in for that information. So with that being said, I believe that's it. Cecile, is there anything else that you'd like to add, or anything that we've got coming up with the city of Houston?
No, not at the moment. Just want to thank Nikki, thank Brian, and thank everybody in this partnership. As you mentioned, people are donating their time, volunteering, taking time away from their billable hours and other obligations. So we really appreciate everybody who comes to these presentations, these workshops, not only to present, but people that are online as well. And on behalf of the city of Houston, we're very thankful for the opportunity and the partnership, and look forward for our next month of service workshop, I believe next
We have
week.
coffee conversation on Tuesday, the
Coffee.
property taxes on Wednesday, foreclosure is on Thursday.
So you got that you got that all memorized.
Hey, you know, I've been
Y'all give me a few more weeks and I'll have it all up here.
Yeah, we try to keep those things on a schedule, so people kind of know, oh, well, this is the Wednesday that they do this one, so let me come back this month. I can't come this month, but let me try it again next month. So we know people come, you know, they watch, they tune in like on their lunch breaks and things like that, or while they're in the car trying to drive home and listen in. So we want to make sure people know that, hey, we'll be back next month. So we try to give you the most up-to-date information that we possibly can, which is why we do these on a monthly basis. Things change, processes change, resources change, and we want, again, to make sure that the most up-to-date information is provided, so people are not out there listening to the street committee like, oh, 2 years ago when I did blah 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 blah, you know, this is what happened to me. Well, it's not the same as 2 years ago. So we're bringing you the most up-to-date information that we can possibly get out to you guys. So if there are any presentations that we don't currently offer, there is a survey link that pops up at the end, and we ask that you guys to fill out the survey for us. Moving forward, that helps us to with planning our future presentations. So if there is something that's impacting your community, that's impacting your family, that you want more information about, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Cecile so that we'll know as we're planning forward what to include or to incorporate in our presentations. But again, thank you, Miss Nikki. We appreciate you. You all have a wonderful remainder of your day. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, stay cool out there again, because this heat is coming back this week, since we got that trickery last week and we were good for a little while. You know, just, you know, take care of yourselves and do what you got to do to stay safe. And we will see you all next time.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.